The mysterious captive. The galaxy was a vast place, full of strange worlds and even stranger creatures. But none were as feared as the Xorothians, a race of cold, calculating aliens. With their advanced technology and ruthless ways, they had conquered countless planets. They thought themselves the rulers of the universe, unstoppable and invincible. On a remote world, far from Earth, a small ship drifted helplessly in the endless void of space. It had been damaged during a brutal attack, and its crew was captured. Among them was a human, a man named Adam. His ship had been destroyed in a skirmish with the Xorothian fleet. The aliens, known for their cruel ways, had found him floating in space, unconscious but alive. Adam was brought aboard a Xorothian battleship. His body ached from the harsh conditions of space and the long journey through the stars. He had no idea where he was or what was going to happen to him. He had heard rumors about the Xorothians, how they captured species from across the galaxy and used them for experiments, gladiator-style games, and even sacrifices. Fear gripped his heart as he realized that he might be nothing more than a prize for their cruel rituals. The Xorothians didn't care for human life. To them, humans were weak, primitive creatures, nothing more than tools to be used and discarded. They never expected a human to be anything special, let alone a threat. As Adam was dragged through the cold, metallic halls of the battleship, he could hear the alien soldiers speaking in their harsh, guttural language. They were eager to see him die. Despite the fear gnawing at his insides, Adam remained silent. His hands were bound, and his body was sore, but his mind was clear. He couldn't let the aliens see his fear. He had to stay calm, had to think. There had to be a way out of this. But what could a single, unarmed human do against an entire fleet of Xorothians? The Xorothians were preparing for their ritual. The human was to be sacrificed. His blood would be spilled in honor of their gods, and the Xorothians would receive a blessing of strength and power. They had done this countless times before. Each time, the sacrifice had been an alien species, and each time, the ritual had worked. The Xorothians grew stronger, more powerful, and more feared across the galaxy. But this time, something was different. Adam was brought into the heart of the battleship, a large arena where the sacrifice was to take place. The air was thick with the smell of incense, and the walls were lined with Xorothian soldiers. They all watched as Adam was thrown to the ground. His eyes met the cold, unfeeling gazes of the alien warriors, and a chill ran down his spine. He was surrounded by enemies, all eager for his blood. The Xorothian leaders were seated on high thrones, watching with smug expressions. They had no doubt that this human would die in the arena, just like all the others before him. To them, it was just another simple ritual. But Adam wasn't like the others. He had a secret, something hidden deep inside him, something he didn't fully understand. In that moment, as he lay on the cold stone floor, something began to stir inside him. It wasn't just fear, it was power, raw, untapped potential. As Adam stood up, his mind raced. He had to survive. He had to find a way to turn the tide. The Xorothians thought he was weak, but they didn't know what he was capable of. They didn't know that humans were capable of more than just survival. They had no idea what kind of power lay hidden beneath the surface. The Xorothian warriors surrounded him, each one armed with deadly weapons. They laughed at him, mocking his helplessness. But Adam's eyes narrowed. He felt something within him awakening, something he had never felt before. It was as if his mind and body were becoming one, his senses sharpening, his instincts kicking into overdrive. Without warning, Adam moved. His body moved faster than the aliens could react. He dodged their attacks, his movements fluid and precise. The soldiers were surprised, thrown off by his speed and skill. Adam wasn't just fighting to survive. He was fighting because he knew he had to. This wasn't just about him anymore. This was about proving that humans could do more than just be weak. In the chaos, Adam grabbed one of the alien weapons, a sleek, deadly blade. He swung it with incredible precision, knocking down two of the warriors. The others hesitated, confused by his unexpected strength. The Exorathians had never seen anything like it. Humans were supposed to be weak, helpless, but Adam wasn't like the others. As the fight raged on, Adam's mind began to race. He wasn't just fighting for his life. He was fighting for something much greater. He realized that the Exorathians had underestimated him, and that could be their downfall. This human, this seemingly insignificant creature, was more powerful than they could ever imagine. But the Exorathians didn't know that yet. The battle wasn't over. The Exorathians had underestimated Adam, but they still had the numbers and the technology. However, Adam had something they didn't: the power to surprise, to outsmart, and to never give up. The first part of the story ends with Adam realizing that he might not be just another sacrifice after all. There was something more in him, something the Exorathians had failed to see. The arena was filled with chaos, but in the middle of it all, Adam stood tall, stronger than he had ever felt before. Suspense. What will Adam do next? Will his hidden power be enough to escape? This moment sets the stage for the incredible journey ahead. Adam was no longer just a helpless human. He had just begun to unlock the true potential inside him, and the galaxy would soon learn what a human was truly capable of. The first test. The Exorathians had no idea what they had just unleashed. After Adam's unexpected display of skill and strength, the alien soldiers stood frozen. The arena, once filled with laughter and mockery, was now tense with confusion and awe. Adam's heart pounded, but it wasn't from fear anymore. It was from the thrill of the unexpected power rushing through his veins. The weapon he held felt like an extension of himself, and the alien warriors before him now seemed less like deadly opponents and more like obstacles to be overcome. The Exorathian High Command, seated on their thrones, exchanged uncertain glances. The Oracle, a figure so ancient and mysterious that even the Exorathians respected her, had spoken little since Adam's arrival. But now her eyes were fixed on him. She saw something in Adam, a hidden power that was beyond the understanding of even the greatest minds of the Exorathian Empire. She remained silent, watching the human, waiting for something. Enough, a commanding voice bellowed from the throne. It was the voice of General Zorak, the leader of the Exorathian warriors. His tall, armored form rose from his seat, his eyes burning with both fury and admiration. This human is stronger than we anticipated. We shall see if his strength can match his courage. With a gesture, Zorak signaled for the arena doors to open. Out from the darkness emerged a creature unlike anything Adam had ever seen. It was massive, twice the size of any human, with spiny armor covering its back and a mouth full of sharp, jagged teeth. Its eyes glowed with a menacing yellow light, and it snarled as it approached. "This is your first test, human," Zorak said with a sneer. "Face the Krakthor. If you survive, we will reconsider your fate." The Krakthor was one of the deadliest creatures in the galaxy, bred for combat and fearsome in every way. It was nearly invulnerable, with thick scales that deflected almost any weapon. Adam had heard stories of the Krakthor, of how it was used by the Exorathians to crush their enemies without mercy. It was a creature of brute strength, speed, and relentless fury. Adam took a deep breath. He had no choice. He could feel the eyes of the entire Exorathian Empire on him, watching his every move. He had to win this fight, not just for his life, but for something greater. The Krakthor roared and charged at him with terrifying speed. Adam didn't hesitate. His instincts took over. He darted to the side, narrowly avoiding the creature's deadly claws, and felt the air whoosh past him. His feet hit the ground hard, but his body moved with a fluid grace he hadn't known he possessed. With every step, Adam's senses sharpened. His muscles, once tired from the brutal journey to this point, now felt like they were made of steel. His mind raced, calculating each move before it even happened. The Krakthor turned quickly, its eyes fixed on him with unblinking rage. But Adam was faster now. The alien warriors watched in stunned silence as Adam moved with purpose, his eyes never leaving the Kragthor. The creature lunged, its massive claws reaching for him. Adam's mind raced. He couldn't dodge forever. He needed to find an opening. As the Kragthor's claw came crashing toward him, Adam leaped, using the momentum to twist in midair. His feet landed on the creature's back, just between two of its armored plates. With a swift motion, he drove the alien weapon he had taken earlier deep into the Kragthor's scales. The Kragthor let out a deafening roar of pain, shaking violently to dislodge Adam. But Adam held firm, his grip on the blade tight. He didn't just want to survive. He wanted to end this fight. The Kragthor spun, attempting to throw him off, but Adam's strength, combined with his newfound speed and agility, allowed him to stay locked in place. He twisted the blade, cutting deeper into the creature's armor. The Kragthor screeched, flailing in pain, and with one final powerful strike, Adam pierced its heart. The beast let out one last roar before collapsing to the ground, its body twitching as it died. For a moment, there was silence. The arena felt still, as if the entire galaxy was holding its breath. The Cerothian soldiers stood in shock, unable to comprehend what had just happened. The general, his face pale, stepped forward and examined the creature's lifeless body. Zorek's voice, usually full of confidence and power, now trembled with disbelief. "Impossible," he whispered. "No human has ever." But before he could finish, Adam stood tall, his chest heaving with exertion. His body was covered in sweat, and the weapon in his hand was stained with alien blood. He didn't look like a man who had just killed a monstrous creature. He looked like a warrior, like someone who had found his true calling. "I'm not just any human," Adam said, his voice steady and unwavering. "I'm not your sacrifice. I'm something more." The Exorothians could do nothing but stare. Their whole world was shifting. The human they had thought was weak was showing them just how powerful humanity could be. And this was only the beginning. Suspense. What will the Exorothians do now? Can they defeat Adam, or will he continue to surprise them? Adam had proven something in that moment, not just to the Exorothians, but to himself. The power he had discovered inside him wasn't a fluke. It was real. And the galaxy was about to find out what one human could do when they were pushed to the edge. The Oracle's vision. The arena fell silent, the echo of the Kragthor's final roar still lingering in the air. Adam stood amidst the broken creature's body, his chest heaving with exhaustion. The fight was over, but the battle had only just begun. The Cerothian warriors were still staring at him, their expressions a mix of awe and fear. No one had ever seen a human do what he had just done. But as Adam caught his breath, his eyes flickered to the high balcony where the Cerothian leaders were seated. Their expressions, once smug and certain, were now filled with uncertainty. It was there that the Oracle sat, a figure so ancient and mysterious that even the most powerful of the Cerothians feared her. Her presence was like a shadow that loomed over them all, her piercing eyes watching everything in silence. The Oracle had always been a figure of prophecy for the Cerothians. She was said to possess the ability to see beyond time, to glimpse the future, to understand things no one else could. She was consulted in moments of great importance, and today her eyes were focused on Adam. Her ancient mind, capable of seeing through the fog of time, was racing to comprehend what she had just witnessed. A soft murmur rippled through the crowd as the Oracle spoke for the first time since the battle had begun. Her voice was deep, like the rumble of distant thunder, yet it carried an otherworldly calm. "This human is not as he appears." The words hung in the air, heavy and filled with meaning. Adam could feel the weight of her gaze, and for the first time since his capture, he began to feel the smallest flicker of hope. Could it be possible that someone other than the Cerothians, could see him for what he truly was? The High Command looked to each other nervously, unsure of how to react. The Oracle's words were not to be taken lightly. She had spoken truths before that had changed the course of battles, even the fate of entire civilizations. No one dared to defy her. The oracle's eyes never left Adam. "This human," she said again, her voice slow and deliberate, "is a vessel of power, power beyond what we have ever known." Her words sent a ripple of shock through the Xerothians. To them, Adam was just a human, weak and insignificant. But the oracle had seen something more. She had seen that Adam was not merely a pawn in their grand design. He was a force of nature, a power that could challenge their rule. The high command shifted uneasily in their seats. Zorak, the general who had overseen Adam's capture, clenched his fists. "This human is nothing more than a prisoner. We will make use of him, Oracle, nothing more." But the oracle's eyes burned with a fierce intensity. "You do not understand," she replied, her voice ringing with ancient authority. "This one, he is not your tool. He is the spark that will ignite a fire that could burn your empire to the ground." The general's face grew pale. His once unshakable confidence wavered. The oracle's vision was terrifying. For if what she said was true, Adam could be more than just an obstacle. He could be the one to overthrow them all. Adam felt a shiver run down his spine. He had no idea what the oracle saw in him, but one thing was clear. He wasn't just a pawn in a battle anymore. The Xerothians feared him. He could feel it in the air. He could sense that something deep inside him had awakened, something that was connected to the galaxy itself. He had never known his true potential until now. The oracle's gaze softened as she turned to face the high command. "You are blind to the truth, General Zorak. The power that resides within this human has been dormant for eons. It is only just beginning to stir, but soon it will be too powerful for you to control." Zorak's grip tightened around the hilt of his weapon, his face flushed with anger. "Enough of your riddles, Oracle. We will take control of this human. We will break him." But the oracle shook her head, her long, silver hair cascading like a river of light. "You cannot break what has already been broken. This human has faced death and has emerged stronger. You will not break him. Instead, you will awaken something far more dangerous than you can imagine." Her words struck Adam like a bolt of lightning. He didn't understand fully what she meant, but he could feel the truth of it in his bones. There was something deep within him, something ancient, and now it was beginning to stir. What the oracle had said wasn't just a prophecy, it was a warning. For the first time since his capture, Adam felt a sense of purpose beyond survival. He wasn't just fighting to escape anymore. He wasn't just trying to survive in the face of impossible odds. He had a destiny, one he could barely comprehend, but knew he had to follow. The oracle stood slowly, her voice quiet but filled with authority. "Mark my words, General Zorak. This human will not be your sacrifice. He will be your undoing." With that, the oracle turned her gaze back to Adam, as if waiting for him to make his next move. The Xerothians had failed to understand him, but the oracle saw something beyond their comprehension. Adam wasn't just another victim in their games. He was something far greater. As the oracle's words echoed in his mind, Adam realized that he was no longer a helpless human, bound for sacrifice. He had power, unseen power, and he was beginning to understand it. But the most frightening part of all was that the oracle wasn't the only one who knew it. Adam's journey had just begun, and the Xerothians were about to find out that the human they had captured was no ordinary prisoner. He was the one who would change the course of the galaxy forever. The hidden power awakens. Adam stood frozen in the silence of the arena, the oracle's words still echoing in his mind. He wasn't just a prisoner. He wasn't just a helpless human waiting to die. He was a force, and that force was growing stronger inside him. As the Xerothian High Command exchanged tense whispers, Adam's body began to respond to the unspoken truth. Something deep within him stirred, a power that had been hidden for as long as humanity had existed. The fight with the Krakthur had been just the beginning. The blade he had wielded, the strength he had tapped into, Those were only signs of what was to come. He could feel it now, the power building inside him, just beneath his skin. His heartbeat quickened as an unfamiliar warmth spread through his veins, like a pulse of energy coursing through his body. It was as if his very cells were awakening to something ancient, something primal. A surge of raw strength and clarity washed over him. And in that moment, Adam realized the truth. The Oracle hadn't just seen his potential. She had seen the dormant power that had been locked away in him, buried for countless generations. The Exorothians may have underestimated him before, but they wouldn't be able to ignore what was happening now. His hands trembled slightly as the energy inside him flickered and sparked, like a fire starting to burn out of control. For the first time, Adam felt connected to something greater, something beyond the confines of his physical body. He felt connected to the very stars themselves. But he wasn't the only one who had noticed. General Zorak, his piercing eyes still trained on Adam, could sense the shift in the air. He knew that something had changed. There was something different about this human. His gaze flicked nervously to the Oracle, who remained unmoving, her ancient eyes still locked on Adam. "You can feel it, can't you?" The Oracle whispered softly, though her voice was meant only for Adam. She was watching him with a knowing look, as if she understood the struggle inside him. "The power that runs through you. It is not of this world, Adam. It has been waiting for you to unlock it." Adam clenched his fists, the energy inside him intensifying, as though responding to her words. His mind was racing. How had this power been hidden from him for so long? Where had it come from? What did it mean for his future? The answers seemed just out of reach, but in that moment, Adam knew one thing for certain. He couldn't ignore it. This power was part of him, and whether he liked it or not, he had to learn to control it, before it consumed him, or worse, before the Exorothians used it against him. Zorak, seeing that Adam was not crumbling under the pressure of the Oracle's gaze, took a step forward. His voice was full of warning, but there was also a hint of fear creeping into his tone. "You think you can control this power? You are nothing more than a human, a creature of flesh and bone, no match for the might of the Exorothian Empire." Adam turned to face the general. His body was still trembling, but it wasn't from fear anymore. It was from the immense power swirling within him. The Oracle's words echoed in his mind, urging him to embrace it, to awaken the force inside him. He could feel the heat rising in his chest, and a sense of clarity washed over him. He didn't answer Zorak right away. Instead, Adam closed his eyes, focusing on the power within him. His mind and body seemed to align in perfect harmony, and for the first time since his capture, he felt truly alive, alive in a way that was beyond human understanding. His muscles, already strong, grew even more resilient, and his senses sharpened beyond what should have been possible. Suddenly, Adam's eyes snapped open, glowing with a strange, intense light. He raised one hand, and the air around him seemed to hum with energy, like a storm was gathering just beneath the surface. The Exorothian soldiers, who had been watching him closely, took a step back. Some of them even raised their weapons in fear, unsure of what Adam was capable of. With a swift motion, Adam extended his hand toward a nearby pillar, just a simple stone structure. But to him, it might as well have been a mountain. As he focused his energy, the pillar trembled, then began to lift off the ground. The Exorothians gasped in disbelief. The stone seemed to defy the laws of physics as it floated effortlessly in the air, controlled by Adam's will. The power inside him surged again, and for a brief, terrifying moment, Adam felt as though he could destroy everything around him with just a thought. But he fought to regain control. He couldn't let it consume him. Not yet. The pillar dropped back to the ground with a heavy thud. Adam's breath came in ragged gasps, his body still charged with the raw energy he had unleashed. He was trembling, but this time, it wasn't from fear. It was from the sheer magnitude of what he had just done. Zorak's face was pale. "Impossible," he muttered under his breath. He had seen power before, had witnessed the Xorothian Empire's might firsthand. But this was something different. This human was something different. The Oracle, still seated and watching, nodded slowly. "Yes," she said, her voice as calm as ever. "It has begun." Adam's mind was racing. He had just unlocked a power that he didn't fully understand, but he knew one thing for sure. He couldn't let the Xorothians control him. He had to learn to control this power before it controlled him. The Oracle's voice broke through his thoughts, soft yet clear. "The path ahead is dangerous, Adam. You must choose. Will you continue down the road to power, or will you allow yourself to be consumed by it? The galaxy is watching." Adam swallowed hard, feeling the weight of her words. He had never asked for this power, but now that it was his, he had to make a choice that would change everything. The betrayal. The tension in the air was palpable. Adam stood at the center of the arena, his body still radiating the raw power that had just begun to take root within him. The Xorothians, still reeling from the shocking display of strength, watched him closely. But it wasn't just the Xorothian soldiers or the high command who had a stake in what was happening. The most dangerous force in the room, it seemed, was the one that moved silently behind the scenes. Betrayal. General Zorak, his pride wounded, had no intention of letting this human get any more powerful. He had underestimated Adam once before, but that would not happen again. He would control the situation, even if it meant breaking every rule of the Xorothian Empire. The Xorothians had used humans as tools for centuries, and Zorak believed that Adam was no different. He had simply shown them a glimpse of power, and now they would use him, or eliminate him, before he could prove to be a true threat. As Adam caught his breath, trying to center himself after his last display of power, Zorak moved toward the throne. His voice was low, only meant for the ears of the high command, but Adam could hear the urgency in his tone. "This human is dangerous," Zorak said. "He's more than we bargained for. We need to contain him before he learns how to use that power against us." The Oracle, seated across from them, remained silent, her ancient eyes still locked on Adam. But the glint of her gaze told him that she had already seen what was coming. Zorak's words weren't just an order. They were a decree. A plan was already being formed in the shadows, and Adam was the unknowing centerpiece of it. The tension in the room thickened as the high command deliberated. Adam's heart pounded in his chest as he realized that his newfound power had already made him a target. He had thought that the Oracle's recognition of his strength might protect him, but he had made a critical mistake. He had forgotten one key thing. The Xorothians did not tolerate weakness. They would use him, but they would never allow him to grow too powerful. It wasn't long before Adam learned the truth of Zorak's betrayal. As he was escorted back to his cell, his mind swirling with the possibilities of what he could do next, he overheard a conversation between two soldiers. Their voices were hushed, but in the silence of the halls, Adam's sharp senses picked up every word. "Did you hear?" one of the soldiers whispered. "They're going to use the human's power against the fleet. The High Command has already set the plan into motion. Once they control him, they'll have the ultimate weapon." The other soldier's voice was filled with uncertainty. "But what if he becomes too strong? What if he turns on us?" "He won't have a choice," the first soldier replied, his tone grim. "The general's orders are clear. He'll be controlled, or he'll be disposed of." Adam's blood ran cold. They didn't see him as an ally or a warrior. To the Xorothians, he was just another tool to be used or thrown away. The power that had awoken in him, his only hope, was now the very thing they would exploit. The realization hit him like a punch to the gut. He had been a pawn all along. He couldn't let them control him. He couldn't let them use him as a weapon to further their empire. But the Xorothians were cunning, and if they knew how to manipulate his power, they could do far worse than just imprison him. It was then that Adam made a decision. The very next day, as he was led into another chamber, The door suddenly slammed shut behind him. He could feel the eyes of the guards on him. But it wasn't fear that surged through him this time. It was anger. He had been played, used, betrayed. And now he was going to turn the tables. Without warning, Adam focused his energy, drawing it from the depths of his body. The power inside him roared to life, filling him with a sense of clarity and purpose. His eyes began to glow with the same strange light that had appeared before, and the ground beneath him vibrated with the force of his energy. The guards, unprepared for this sudden shift, stepped back, their weapons raised in defense. But Adam wasn't fighting them. Not yet. He was fighting for control. He had no intention of being the Xarathian's pawn. In a flash, he seized control of the very ship he had once been trapped on. The walls hummed as his energy surged through the ship's systems. Lights flickered, and the air grew heavy with the hum of power. Adam could feel it all, every system, every control, as if the ship itself was a part of him. The guards tried to move forward, but Adam stopped them in their tracks, his mind now fully in control of the ship's internal systems. He wasn't just a man anymore. He was the ship, and the ship was his. "You thought you could control me," Adam said, his voice calm but filled with authority. "But it's you who have underestimated me." The Xarathians had made a fatal mistake. They had tried to use his power for their own gain. But now Adam understood it. He had become the very thing they feared, the unstoppable force they could not contain. But as Adam prepared to take control of the ship fully, to escape and begin his rebellion, a voice cut through the air. It was Zorak. "You think you've won," the general sneered from a nearby observation room. His face was twisted in fury. "You've made a grave mistake. You may have the power, but you do not understand the cost. You will never be free. The Empire will crush you." But Adam didn't flinch. He could feel the power within him, the power that had been hidden for so long. He wasn't just a prisoner anymore. He was the one in control. And now, the true battle would begin. The rebellion rises. The Xarathians had made a grave mistake, and Adam knew it. As the ship's control systems hummed beneath his fingertips, he felt an overwhelming surge of power that he could no longer deny. The Xarathians had underestimated him, thinking they could control him as they had controlled so many others. But what they didn't realize was that the very power they sought to wield was beyond their grasp. Adam stood in the heart of the ship, feeling the pulse of the engines as if they were part of his own body. The corridors were silent, but inside, the ship was alive. Alive with potential. He wasn't just a prisoner anymore. He was a commander. And the crew. They were no longer his captors. They were his followers now, whether they realized it or not. As the weight of his newfound control sank in, Adam felt something stirring within him, a spark of hope that hadn't existed before. He wasn't just fighting for his own survival anymore. He was fighting for the humans scattered across the galaxy, captured, oppressed, and forgotten. This rebellion wasn't just about freeing himself. It was about igniting something far bigger, something that could change the course of history itself. The first step was to secure the ship, and Adam wasted no time. With a focused thought, he sent a pulse of energy through the ship's mainframe, overriding the Xarathian systems. The once secure doors to the weapons room now opened with ease, the ship's defenses no longer a threat to him. He could feel the weapons, cannons, shields, and other technologies at his command. But he wasn't interested in just the weapons. He needed something more. He needed an army. Adam turned his attention to the ship's holding cells, where the other prisoners, humans, and other alien species were kept in chains. He reached out, tapping into the ship's internal communications. One by one, the cells began to unlock, their heavy doors sliding open with a sound that echoed through the halls like the first rumblings of a storm. The prisoners, weak and exhausted from their captivity, emerged cautiously. At first, they moved slowly, unsure of what was happening. But when they saw Adam, his figure standing tall, his eyes glowing with energy, Something inside them stirred. Hope, long forgotten, began to rise in their hearts. "This is it," Adam said, his voice carrying through the silent corridors. "This is your chance. The Exorothians have treated you like nothing more than tools, but no more. You have the power to fight back. You have the power to be free." The prisoners, at first hesitant, began to look at each other with newfound determination. Adam's words had ignited something in them, a spark that had been waiting to be lit. One by one, they stepped forward, joining him in the center of the ship. Humans, aliens, and prisoners from across the galaxy stood united, their fear fading as they saw the power in Adam's hands. The ship's corridors now rang with the sounds of rebellion, the creaking of shackles falling away, the movement of people breaking free from their chains, and the quiet but rising murmur of hope. This was the moment they had all been waiting for, even if they didn't know it. But Adam knew. He knew this wasn't just about taking back control of the ship. It was about something far bigger. The Exorothians had built their empire on oppression, on crushing the will of those who were weaker, those who couldn't fight back. But Adam was showing them that the universe was full of warriors, of people who had the strength to fight back, to rise up against the greatest powers that sought to crush them. And now it was time for those warriors to stand together. The first battle was already beginning. Adam's voice rang out, clear and commanding. "This ship belongs to us now. We are not your slaves, General Zorak. We will not be your sacrifice. The galaxy will hear us, and the Exorothian Empire will fall." But even as Adam stood there, rallying the prisoners to action, he knew the true scale of the challenge ahead. Zorak and the Exorothian Empire wouldn't go down without a fight. The war for the galaxy was just beginning, and Adam had no illusions about the road ahead. The fight would be brutal, the stakes higher than ever. He had the power. He had the army. But would it be enough to bring down the mighty Exorothians? Would they be able to overthrow an empire that had lasted for centuries? Adam took a deep breath. There was no turning back now. The time for waiting was over. The rebellion was alive, and with it, the hope of countless worlds that had long been oppressed. The doors to the main control room swung open, and Adam stepped forward, his heart racing. Behind him, the prisoners, now rebels, followed, ready to fight, ready to take their destiny into their own hands. In that moment, Adam knew that the galaxy was about to change. It was no longer just about survival. It was about victory. And together, they would bring down the Exorothian Empire. The battle for the galaxy. The universe was about to witness the impossible. What began as a small flicker of hope, a single human defying the Exorothian Empire, had become a roaring fire. Adam stood at the helm of that fire, surrounded by the ragtag army of prisoners he had freed. They were a mix of humans and other alien species, but now, under his leadership, they were united in a single cause: to destroy the Exorothian Empire and reclaim their freedom. The battle had already begun. Adam's fingers tightened around the ship's controls. He could feel the pulse of energy coursing through him, the raw power he had unlocked now fully at his command. The ship, his ship, was more than just a tool. It was an extension of himself. The walls, the engines, the weapons, they all hummed with his will, responding to his every thought. His newfound power had become a weapon in itself, one that could bring down even the most formidable of enemies. But even with his control over the ship, Adam knew the battle ahead would not be easy. The Exorothians were formidable, an entire empire built on fear, power, and conquest. Zorak, the ruthless general, had already mobilized their fleet. Thousands of ships, armed with deadly weapons, now approached Adam's position. The Exorothians had been caught off guard once, but they would not make that mistake again. A voice crackled through the comms, cutting through the tension in the air. It was Zorak, his voice full of anger and venom. "You think you can defeat us, human? You are nothing. You will fall before the might of the Exorothian Empire, just like all the others before you." Adam's eyes narrowed as he stared out into the vastness of space. The fleet of Teruthian ships loomed on the horizon, their sleek forms like shadows against the stars. But this time, Adam was ready. The time for fear was over. This was a battle for freedom, for the future of every oppressed being across the galaxy. The rebels gathered at Adam's side, their faces full of determination. They had seen the power he commanded, and they believed in him. They knew that this wasn't just a fight for survival. This was a fight for a future where they could live on their own terms. As the first wave of Ceruthian ships launched their assault, Adam raised his hand. The ship's weapons powered up, responding to his unspoken command. A series of powerful energy blasts shot out, ripping through the void of space and striking the first few Ceruthian vessels. The ships were torn apart in a spectacular display of light and energy, their shields no match for the raw force Adam unleashed. But Zorak was not an easy adversary. As Adam watched, the general's flagship, the largest and most powerful ship in the fleet, began to charge forward. It was a massive vessel, bristling with weapons, its hull reinforced with layers of advanced armor. Zorak had come to end this rebellion once and for all. He would not let a single human challenge his empire. Adam's heart raced, but he remained calm. He could feel the power of the ship, the strength of the rebellion behind him. He wasn't alone anymore. He had an army, one that believed in him, one that fought for the same cause. Together, they could defeat the Ceruthians. "Prepare for the final assault," Adam said, his voice steady and filled with resolve. "We fight for our future, for every soul that has been crushed under the weight of the Ceruthian Empire. Today, we take back what is ours." The rebel ships moved in formation, rallying around Adam's flagship. Together, they formed a tight, impenetrable wall of defense. The Ceruthians had the numbers, but the rebels had something greater: unity, determination, and the belief that their cause was just. As the final battle raged on, Adam led the charge, his ship cutting through the chaos of the battlefield. The Ceruthian fleet was powerful, but it was no match for the combined strength of the rebellion. The energy blasts from their weapons tore through enemy ships, their shields failing under the relentless assault. In the midst of the chaos, Adam locked his gaze on Zorak's flagship. The time had come for the final confrontation. He could feel the general's presence, like a dark cloud looming in the distance, his ship a beacon of hatred and cruelty. But Adam had something that Zorak couldn't possibly understand: the strength of a people united, the power of those who had nothing left to lose. With a single thought, Adam took control of the ship's weapon systems. He aimed every energy cannon, every laser, at Zorak's flagship. The flagship's shields flared to life, but they were no match for the combined force of Adam's power. The rebel fleet rallied behind him, pushing forward with everything they had. The final shot was fired, a brilliant beam of energy that ripped through the darkness of space and struck Zorak's flagship. The ship's shields shattered, and the blast tore through the hull. Zorak's flagship exploded in a massive fireball, the shockwave rippling through space. For a moment, everything was still. The battlefield was silent. But then, the rebel fleet erupted into cheers. The Ceruthians were defeated. Zorak, the cruel general who had once thought himself invincible, was no more. The rebellion had won. Adam stood at the helm of the ship, his chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. He had led them to victory, but this was just the beginning. The galaxy was free, but it would need to rebuild. The Ceruthian Empire may have fallen, but the fight for peace, for freedom, would continue. The journey ahead would not be easy, but Adam knew one thing for sure: as long as he and his new allies stood together, nothing could stop them. They had shown the galaxy what humanity was capable of, and they would never again be underestimated.